Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Race Anywhere Transatlantic Championship, season number 1, here at Monza for round number 8. My name is Daniel Handover, and joining me in the commentary box this evening is the wonderful, fantastic Austin Belkey. Austin, how are you doing this evening? Are you ready for some exciting racing here at Monza?
Hi, Daniel. I'm very good. Hopefully you're doing well also. Yeah, I'm excited for some great racing at Monza. This place has proven to put on some great shows in Formula One of late. I expect the same thing to go on with these guys today. They've shown they can put on exciting races anywhere we go to. I expect this track will be none different. This time, though, we also have the Turn 1 chicane. That's going to be, I think it's going to catch a lot of guys off balance here. I think we're going to see some great racing, a lot of drafting here. I especially look for the Ferraris and Lamborghinis to be strong tonight.
Certainly so. It's going to be, I mean, looking at the previous, or looking at actually the times as well, it seems to be a bit of a mix-up at the front of the grid between the car classes and between the cars themselves, which is fantastic. It means we get some really nice racing with several different cars as well. Before we do get any further ahead, though, big thank you as always to the sponsors of this series. Obviously, Race Anywhere for leading the sponsorship and leading the entire series. Fantastic sim racing equipment, and it's a place where it's built by sim racers, it's for sim racers as well at the end of the day. Race Anywhere is a place where you can get all different types of equipment that you can need for sim racing. You can get apparel, you can get gloves, you can get boots, you can get sim rigs, you can get wheel rims as well, several different wheel rims. There's loads of different options with Race Anywhere. Fantastic place. Very, very well looked after company, and they will also look after you very, very well indeed. So thank you to Race Anywhere. And then we've also got Sim3D and Go for the Gap as well. Sim3D have been making really sort of well, paving the way for what seems to be one of the most popular upgrades that you can actually do in sort of the last 6 months to a year now, many with their rumble kits for pedals. Absolutely fantastic pieces of equipment. Have been lucky enough to try them out myself and have noticed a significant improvement in actual pedal feel. It's a very, very minor thing that you wouldn't necessarily would feel would make too much of a difference. I can assure you very much the opposite. So big thanks to Sim3D for sponsoring as well. And also Go for the Gap. Illustrations, amazing graphic illustrations from Go for the Gap. You can find them on the Etsy store. Simply search Go for the Gap and they will appear absolutely amazing. You can get them in several different sizes, several different designs. And there's designs that come out almost every single week. Fantastic. Very good to have Go for the Gap on board as well. And that is the sponsors for this evening. Obviously, heading round 8 at Monza. Interesting track, to say the least, as you were talking about, Austin. It's going to be providing some fantastic racing. Also, we were talking about this as well last week. This will be a track with fuel saving in mind for all of the drivers. It's something that we were discussing in the Race Anywhere World Series back last week also. We've had a break week this week today. So, lots of things are going to be happening. I just have a look for the fuel saving. We are going to talk about this more and more as we go. So I'm excited to see how it all does pan out. But I mean, Austin, from your perspective as well, championships really starting to hot up now in all 3 classes.
Yeah, obviously, as a famous F1 commentator would say, things are really hotting up at this point. Campbell currently leading the points. He's got 595 to his name, followed by PJ Sturgios. He's 20 points back. Brunner is 5 points behind Sturgios. Sean Ryan is about 65 points behind him in 4th, followed by Dave Menino. He rounds out the top 5 in points in your pro category. In your Pro-Am category, leader is going to be Dan Tenorio with 525 points, followed by Frederic Lavoie with 480. 30 points behind him, there's actually a 2-way tie for 3rd. That's going to be John Cooper and Brent Bravata. And then 5th is going to be Michael Kulaga. So again, he's only got 445 points to his name. A little bit less, it's 80 behind Dan Tenorio. But again, I think these guys, good opportunities to start higher than the people that are doing well or better than you in the championship standings. So I expect these things to really flop on their heads. And then in the AM category, currently Eric Kulaga leads the points with 590. Steve Martinez, has 525 points, followed by Errol Urixoy in 3rd with 490. 10 points behind Errol is going to be Fowler, followed by Jerry Folkerall with 440 points.
It's close indeed, and it's only going to get closer. Tensions are only going to run higher. So realistically, it's going to be continuing to hot up. We've got around about 4.5 minutes left of qualifying. So what we're going to do, we're going to ride on board with one of the drivers for us today, and we're just going to have a quick look. And you know what? I think we'll spend a bit of time, and then we're going to run with a lap on board with Errol Uriksoy when he comes around to the start-finish line. Monza is it's quite a simple track. It's quite a simple track. It's quite a basic track, I suppose, in a way. There's a few complex corners as well. Obviously, the Sky chicanes that you can see Errol going through now is somewhat of a complex corner and a complex corner section. But realistically, Monza just tends to be a lot of long straights, followed by a heavy braking zone and then a right-hand turn. It tends to be sort of what Monza is. It is surprisingly difficult when you actually start driving it. And like I said, if Errol stays on board and Errol stays on circuit, we are going to be following him for a lap. Seems to be he might be coming into the pits though, and yes he does. So we're not going to follow Errol, but instead we are going to follow someone who will be coming around to drive a full lap in but a few moments' time. Not too long of practice left though, so everyone just getting their last little bits of opportunity in for a little bit of testing. Someone's got off in the background. Who was that? That was number 67. Actually, sorry, it was number 62. That was Wilson Brewer having a spin at Chicago. I do hope not, but I fear that maybe that won't be the last time that we see that happen at Austin.
No, I doubt it. It gets really slick through there as we're going to see this car come out of the Parabolica on to start his lap here. Of course, that's the pit entry right there. He's going to start his lap right down here. The first of our very long straights here. We're riding along with Dan Gennori right now in his Twisted Racing red Lamborghini here. So you can see in a couple seconds he's going to throw his anchors out the side of the car here, break down for turn one. This is a right-left chicane, super tight here. You can see it gets a lot narrower as he goes there. You want to cut both those corners there. Just put your tires on the rumble strips there. He's going to swing out wide. Ooh, not that wide, almost in the grass there. It looks like he's actually going to show down. Let's ride along with PJ Sturgios. He just ended up passing Dan Tenorio there.
He certainly did. Absolutely. So coming down into the second chicane, again, similar to what Austin was saying, similar to the first, you want to cut over the first left-hander, really push the car over. You can see how much curb is being taken here. You can do this in a GT3 car. You can't do this really in an LMP2 car. GT3 is absolutely fine. First Lesmo, turn in surprisingly early. You initially think you want to be turning a bit later. Always better to turn in slightly early. PJ Sturgis is actually going to be continuing with the lap as well. Lucky. So again, you can see how much curb is being taken here. So PJ Sturgis really utilising with the suspension geometry setup, obviously seems to be working well for this car. You're going to see this again through the first portion of the Ascari chicanes over the sausage curbs on the left hand side. Really pushes the car over, goes wide as you possibly can. There it is. It sets you up for the remainder of the Ascari chicane. And then you can see through the last portion, again, utilising the curb. Very, very key here. It's surprising how many tenths you can lose if you don't use the curbs. You've got to hit it right. You've got to hit them correctly. But if you do, you will gain a massive amount of time. Now down into Parabolica. Again, a slightly earlier turn-in. Initially, slightly earlier than you think that you should be, allowing the car to then open up. You can see again utilising all of the track nice and early on the throttle. Realistically, again, PJ Sergio is currently third in practice, so he's got some good pace at the moment. Harry Wills is really sort of making some moves, which is fantastic to see. The Mercedes working really well. We have seen we've seen in the past that the Mercedes. It's a difficult car to drive, I think is the best way to put it. It's not an easy car to drive. It's an old car to drive as well. We've got to think, Austin, this is the oldest car on the grid. Well, actually, this and the McLaren as well. Both, two of the oldest cars on the grid. They've been on the service now for about 5 years. And now you've got the likes of the Audi, the Porsche, the Lamborghini. All of these modern cars coming up. It's great to see some of those still being used.
Yeah, even the Ferrari, and not many drivers, I don't think any in this series run the new Ferrari, but there is a brand new Ferrari that's come out. That car is especially fun to drive. I will say, though, I think the McLaren is a bit more difficult than the Mercedes to drive. Usually the Mercedes is my choice of car for any GT3 race. I think it's just a more balanced car. You can do a lot of different things with the setup to make it be competitive, but if you do have to swing it one way or the other, it becomes almost impossible to drive consistently fast every lap. Like you mentioned, though, you want to take a lot of curbs in these corners. So, kind of lends itself to a different car setup to make sure that the suspension can kind of go through those corners and really absorb the impacts. And of course, if you hit them wrong, one of your tires is going to be up in the air. You're going to land, get a lot of grip, and we're probably going to see a lot of drivers spin out here.
Certainly so. Yes, very, very true indeed. We're going to be running you through the starting grid very, very quickly because it will be a short run going up to the start-finish line. So what we're going to do is we are going to give you the running order. James Pearce will start from the front in the pro class, followed by then Ryan Kaprowski, Harry Wills, Justin Brunner, PJ Sturgis, and Sean Campbell. Obviously, he's leading the championship, so we reverse them around. Very quickly as well, we also then have Taylor Lane starting pole in the Pro-Am category, Joseph Smith starting in second, Blake Scott P3, and Casey Metzger in P4. And if we go a little bit further down the order, we can see Andrew Rasmussen in 5th, Wilson Brewer 6th, Andrew Hewson 7th, Tyler Campbell 8th, Michael Kalaga in 9th, Brent Bravata P10, John Cooper is your P11 starting, Frederick Lavoie in 12th, and then Daniel Tenorio again leading the Pro-Am Championship. He will be starting in P13. And then Austin, finally lead us with the AMs if you would.
Yeah, Jason Bridges going to start on pole for his class, followed by Andrew Hewitt in second. Third is going to be Mark Scott, followed by Matthew Albus in fourth. Kyle Fredrickson going to round out your top 5, followed by John Casey in sixth. Drew Neubauer, and Kyle Herlitzky in 7th and 8th, respectively, followed by Matthew Plaisance and Ken Sazka in 9th and 10th. Daniel Froyer going to line up 11th, followed by Jay Steffi in 12th. 13th is going to be Jared Fulcrob, and then in 14th is going to be Michael Fowler.
Indeed, Michael Fowler, Errol Uriksoy 15th, Stephen Martinez in 16th, and then Eric Kalaga. And leading the AM Championship will be starting right at the very back. A tricky scenario for these drivers, especially when you are leading the championship, because you've got a long way to go. Not so much of an issue for the pro category drivers because there's a slightly smaller grid. You've only got 6 cars. Doesn't mean we're not going to get some good racing, because we certainly are. We're going to be following you down into the first corner with the Pro-Am category, and then we are going to be moving on to obviously the Pro-Am and then the Am respectively. So, just about ready to go here for round number 8. James Pearce will be leading us away in the Twisted Racing number 23 Porsche 911 GT3R, followed by Ryan Kaprowski on the left-hand side. Who is going to get the jump? Who is going to get the cleanest run coming down? When are they going to go? Bear in mind, we have the starting flag. The green flag does not necessarily symbol where the starting block is. It has to be a certain point. And you know what? I think that's already been gone, because James Pearce puts his foot down, gets a nice early lead straight out of the gates. Fantastic stuff. Exactly what we wanted to see. Look at that. 0.3 of a second already gained just going down into turn 1. Is there going to be some moves a little bit further down the order? Doesn't seem to be. Possibly I thought Harry Wills was going to try and have to defend a little bit heavy from Justin Brunner, but does not. And to be honest, that's pretty much the pro category that's gone down. You can just see the Pro-Am category in the background there, so we're going to leave a little bit of time, and then we're going to go through and watch the Pro-Am field come through. But again,
Taylor Lane's just taken the green flag here on the front stretch, leading the field into the first chicane.
let's run to him now. As you can see,
he's going to throw out his anchors, going to lead the field down. A little bit of a contact there. I believe that's between Brewer and Hewson as they try to get their cars slowed down. A little bit of contact. Shouldn't be too hurtful to them. We guarantee that was probably a 0x, so hopefully it doesn't hurt them too much in overall speed. If you hit anything with these cars, you're probably going to lose a couple miles an hour down a straightaway. Usually it wouldn't be too much of a risk or, hurt you too much. But here, like you said, a lot of long straightaways really could hurt you.
Certainly so. Going down into the Pro-Am field, seems to be a little bit of dice in there. That's Drew Neubauer and Jay Steffi. They're having a bit of a battle. Nothing seems to be out of the ordinary as it stands. Everyone getting through. Matthew Alvis has had a bit of a moment. Not quite sure what's happened. You can just see the car in the background. That is Matthew Alvis in number 87 BMW. So not too sure what's happened there. We're going to get a replay in a few moments' time. But one of the bigger grids, what's happening up the front? John Casey trying to make a move straight away on Carl Fredrickson. They're going to go side by side. Who is going to be coming out on top? It is going to be Carl Fredrickson. So he makes up a position. John Casey unfortunately loses one to the number 36 Mercedes, but now might be losing another position, possibly to Carl Herlitzky, that's going to try and go around the outside. That's a brave move going through the first Lesmo. Tries to do the same thing through the second, decides to back out and decides against it. So he now maintains his position. Jay Steffi's having a bit of a look up the... thought he was going to have a bit of a look up the inside, decides again against it. A little bit further up the field though, coming down into, this is the pro field as well. This is the battle for second place. Harry Wills straight up leads, no fuss, wants to get the move done and dusted. Meanwhile, Justin Brunner has actually just got past Sean Campbell. nearly got by Sean Campbell, I should say. It's going to be a drag race to those two. McLaren versus McLaren coming down. But that is Harry Wills making the move up the inside of Ryan Kaprowski. So fair play indeed. But what's going to happen a little bit further down the field? Well, just a couple of cars down, only about 50, 25, 30 feet. It's going to be Sean Campbell. Still comes up the inside. So that is a Sean Campbell. Another position has taken just around. Bear in mind, he started at the back. Started in P6. And all the first lap, he's up into 4th place. Really trying to make some moves forward straight away, naturally, as you would expect. Oh, there's some action. There is some action in the Pro field. There's some action in the Pro-Am field here as well. It's all kicking off.
Yeah, you can see Andrew Rasmussen on the inside here as they go into turn 3 and 4. Down into the second chicane here. Who's going to be the last of the late breakers? Rasmussen really deep on the brakes. Actually makes a bit of contact there with Frederick Lavoie. I don't think that'll hurt Frederick too much, but it might hurt Andrew quite a bit. You can see his nose is a little crinkled. This is currently the battle for 6th in class. Looking here on the back of Andrew's car, back to Brent Bravata there in his Lamborghini.
Absolutely. And then going down into the AM category here, again, we've seen a carbon copy pretty much of what's going to happen here, side by side. This is Daniel Floria versus John Casey, and it is going to be Daniel Floria that makes up that position. Again, bear in mind, started at the back of the field, or nearer the back of the field here. Actually, no, apologies, sorry, I'm getting a little bit confused. Yeah, John Casey's lost 2 positions. Daniel Flores made up 4 positions, so moving forward very, very nicely. Errol Uruksoy hasn't actually made the progress that we would have expected. It's tricky here, especially on the last bit. You're playing the long game here as well. You've got to make sure that you move forward at the correct time. You don't want to push forward too aggressively and too soon. Otherwise, mistakes will come about and accidents will also happen as well. A couple of replays are going to come up in a second. But as it stands, James Pearce is leading the Pro category. We've got Taylor Lane leading the Pro-Am category. For how much longer? Not 100% sure, because Casey Metzger is really trying to make the moves, isn't it? Well, I'd say that he's not really attacking too hard. I think Taylor Lane may be defending when he might not need to. I wonder if he's actually costing a bit of time for himself, because Casey Metzger may actually just want to sit behind and try and save a bit of fuel. Like I said, I'm going to talk about that quite a lot. Actually, Casey Metzger is going to completely prove me wrong and put my theory straight out of the water. He wants to get in front, he wants to lead, and he wants to get gone. Is it going to be? No, it's not quite there yet. Again, I think Taylor Lane may be costing himself quite a bit of time here. If anything, I would almost let the battles happen ahead, possibly, if everyone wants to get by, and then sit behind and save the fuel. Oh, bit of a scary chicane battling here. Wow, that was brave. That was brave. Who was that? I think.
That's incredible. I think that's going to be Ryan Kaprowski there, just going right over up one of those turtles on the inside there. But I think maybe Justin Brunner might actually have a slowdown penalty for cutting that corner.
Oh, such a shame. Such a shame. I mean, it looked like he didn't.
Yeah, it didn't look like he did, but of course he pulls off to the side here. I think he checks up to let the other cars by here. I'm not too sure. No, it looks like he didn't have to. He was just trying to break the draft on the back straightaway.
Break the draft. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, to be fair, a viable thing to try and do, certainly. It's going to be a possible 3-wide battle. Oh, that was a bit of a lunge from PJ Sturgis. He's tried to throw it up the inside, and he's gone up the inside of Ryan Kaprowski. So he is now back up to a net position of where he started this race. Let's have a quick look again at what happened to Matthew Alvis at the start of the race. Is it going to be something... Just trying to see what happened here. Could it be a little bit... I don't know if there were some technical issues, but just seems to pull over to the side of the road. Not 100% sure what happened there.
What it might have been? He might have had a penalty and needed to pull over to let these guys by to make sure
was it a jump start or something?
Race.
Was it a possible
jump
start?
Yeah, it could have been. I know he was starting to pull out of the pits as soon as the pro category came by, so I don't know if maybe the admins, of course, live admins in this series, I don't know if they maybe thought he was doing a little bit of a cheeky move there, so they asked him to just kind of pull over to the side and stop for a second.
Could possibly be. Very, very true. Back down into the Pro-Am category field, we got some more battling coming up here. So that was, this is Taylor Lane, Casey Metzger. Casey Metzger, he's got a slowdown. That's what a slowdown looks like. You have to pull over. You have to give up the time. Luckily, it's not the first lap. It's the third lap. So the delta, iRacing's got a delta to work off of. If that was the first lap, that would be absolute miles. Someone's gone off. That was Brent Bravata. He's gone for a bit of sightseeing on the coming exit of the first Lesmo. So it's all really starting to kick off here. This is the battle for the lead here. You got Wilson Brewer, Casey Metzger, and then Taylor Lane. Taylor Lane's going to try and go around trying to go up the inside, going through, manages to do it. Good move there. Very, very well placed, very committed there, going straight up into second place. And the next person now is Wilson Brewer, who's made up 5 positions since the start of the race. Very, very good stuff indeed. Looking a little bit further back to the the AM category. The AM category is spread out a little bit. We've got Mark Scott that's still making up some good positionings here. Brent Bravata is actually trying to make some moves. He's just got past Andrew Hewson a little bit further behind. But again, Pro-Am field. I think after, you probably might start finding, after about the 10-minute mark, you're already seeing this, I think, from everyone. I was about to say you're seeing this more from the Pro-Am field. They're trying to save fuel, but that's not the case. Oh, possible 3 wide going into turn 1. Oh, everyone's gone wide. Everyone's gone wide. Everyone's gone offline a little bit. You've got a little bit further behind. That's Tyler Campbell and Blake Scott that are having a bit of a battle that's side by side. They're still side by side. A little bit of contact between the two, but I'm sure no harm done there and nothing that was going to damage either of those cars. So the Pro-Am category, the Pro-Am field is where it's really starting to kick off. Everything else, it seems to be just a little bit more control at the moment. Everyone seems to be a little bit more stable and have settled in. The Pro-Am field just has not done that. They're not comfortable with the positions they're in, which arguably, like I said, is costing them more time. It's not so bad because the likes, obviously, Brewer, Lane and Metzger at the front are still battling themselves. But Tyler Campbell, Blake Scott, Frederick Lavoie, they've got to be careful because if they continue to battle and the front runners don't, they're going to start creating a gap.
Yeah, let's actually take a look at currently the battle in the pro category. Sean Campbell just actually put his car off track in order to get by James Pierce, who had a terrible run through his car. He got loose on exit and actually forced Sean Campbell into the grass. If he wanted to make the pass, he said, fine, I'll take those odds. Put his right sides in the grass down the back straightaway. You can see right now he's trying to hunt down Harry Wills here. Harry's currently been leading every lap. Currently, the cars behind him have been trading positions back and forth, but you can see the cars are starting to invert themselves. You can see this is when Harry was starting to get that run, so Harry's going to be in the lead here. He's going to come out of the 2 Lesmos. You can see that's going to be Sean Campbell and James Pierce behind him, currently battling over positions. We go back live here. This is them heading down into the second chicane, so through the long right-hander. Right now, Sean is just trying to size up his competition. Not the longest straightaway. Of course, it's not even a straightaway. It's kind of a curve. So right now, he's just trying to see how much of a draft he can possibly build up. You can see Harry just put his left sides there in the sand, getting a little bit squirrely on corner exit, down in the Lesmo number 1 here. Like you said, Daniel, early turn-in, a lot earlier than you have to. What most drivers, you wouldn't get it until you looked at a map. The first Lesmo is actually more of an acute angle, where the second Lesmo is more of an obtuse one, a lot closer to the 90 than the first one.
Absolutely, yes. You look at them initially. There's the move on Sean Campbell actually going up from James Pierce in P2. And I tell you what, Sean Campbell is hunting down Harry Wills, isn't he? He really wants that position. It's the sort of first, so you look at the 2 Lesmos and you look at them initially on like a track map and they look relatively similar. They're certainly not. There's a lot of Whoa, that was big commitment there from everyone. Top 4, absolutely flat out commitment. I wonder if PJ Sturgis is actually going to try and get up James Pierce. Is James Pierce going to lose another position? Has he got a slowdown? May have done, or just got a poor exit. I think it may have just been a poor exit. So it has cost him yet another position. If I was James Pierce at this point, I would try and sit behind, let Sturgis pull him along and just save the fuel. Again, the pit stops are where they're key here.
What James did there down the backstretch, just kind of realized he lost the position, so he'd rather tuck in and get the draft here down the front stretch. He might even try to take it back here in turn 1. You can see Frederick Lavoie getting a little bit argy-bargy again with that's going to be Campbell in front of him, followed by Scott and Rasmussen. So you can see, like you said, the Pro-Am category, they're still going at each other.
They certainly are. Andrew Rasmussen trying to go. He may have lost a position, possibly. It seems to be Blake Scott has now got past Andrew Rasmussen. So that is a position that has gone. Daniel Tenorio, he's not too far behind. Is he going to try and make a move on Rasmussen as well? If anything, I would... It's tricky. If anything, I wouldn't. I would let these 2 battle up ahead. There's no point trying to go. They're actually going to go through 3 wide. This is going to be an interesting battle. What's going to happen here? Oh, they're going to go 3 wide down into the first chicane. Oh, it's going to be close. That's a little bit... It's very, very too close for comfort up as well between Blake Scott and Frederick Lavoie as well. Who is going to come out on top out of the first chicane? It is still Blake Scott, and he's pulled a little bit of a gap. So he managed to get through that nice and unscathed. So...
we have had a few incidents. I'm just going to try and see if we can get some replays again. But there has been a few incidents. Matthew Plays answered one of them, as well as Casey Metzger. So this will be probably why we have seen these guys now come into the pits. Oh, bit of contact. That was the number 53 versus Matthew Plaisance. That is not good. Who is the number 53? And it is Stephen Martinez. Yes, Matthew Plaisance unfortunately has lost out on that big time. Not good at all. Again, coming in back to live pictures, look at Daniel Tenorio versus Andrew Rasmussen. This is still cracking on. And you've also got John Cooper and then Blake Scott trying to get involved as well. It is absolutely nip and tuck between all these drivers. Again, look at from the blimp cam we can see there. As I say that, Daniel Tenorio has just pulled out a little bit of a gap, which is quite nice. I'm sure he's not going to be complaining about that. But the problem is, now, Rasmussen, well, he's got a tow. That 1.2 second window, that is still within a tow window. It's still within the draft availability. So it's very, very hard here, isn't it, Austin, to break the draft here, because simply the track is so fast and there's so many long straights.
We've got a battle here for the overall lead in the pro category. It looks like Sean Campbell was about to outbreak. That would be Wills going down into the second chicane there. He's currently going to try to resize up the competition again. You can see these guys are putting some tires off in the sand there. Every single chance they get, the battle is even hotting up in this series as well.
It certainly is. So you can just hear it there in Sean Campbell. We'll have a listen through going into the Scar chicanes, but I think there's going to be quite a bit of fuel saving from Sean Campbell. If that is the case, and we get the confirmation here, so we'll just have a quick listen to see what Sean Campbell does. There we go, and there's the lift. So there's the lift for a good 2 or 3 seconds before the braking is applied. So this tells me that Sean Campbell is playing the long game here. He's in the perfect position. PJ Sturgis is now just behind, obviously because he's overtook James Pearce a couple of laps ago. So realistically, you should see, we're going to run on board with PJ Sturgis. Is he going to be also fuel saving as well? Let's have a listen. There is also a bit of fuel saving for PJ Sturgis. So both of these drivers here are fuel saving. Now, if this works out, it's not going to really affect too much in the very, very first pit stop. The second pit stop, that's going to make a difference. James Pearce is also going to be fuel saving. This is just how much can you fuel save. The fuel saving is going to be so key here, because that could be a 1 litre fuel save could be the difference between a position, especially if it's this close between drivers. With 15 minutes in, we've got another hour to go. Lots can happen, and I'm sure lots will be happening. But you've got to play the long game as early as you possibly can.
Yeah, right now looking at the first 4 positions, fourth place, James Pearce, he's only 0.8 of a second behind Harry Wills in first. So if he spends 1 less second in the pit stop, he's currently going to go back out there and retake the lead. So, and he started P1, so I guarantee you he's thinking about that right now. You can see these guys are mostly just fuel saving at the end of the straightaway, not only to make them have to take less fuel in the pit stop, but also, you're getting a huge draft from the car behind. You might as well use some of that draft and some of that overspeed to help you kind of slow the car down early and just kind of coast into the corners. Really allows you to do a lot of certain other things in case your car might have some off throttle oversteer. You don't have to hit the brakes certainly as hard as you need to, kind of upset the car, just depending on where you have that brake bias set. Right now we're looking at Jay Steffi. He's currently made his way all the way up into the lead of the AM category. He started pretty far in the back. You can see Frederic Lavoie, I believe he might have had a bit of contact with another car behind him. I think that was a Lamborghini. I'm not quite sure. Couldn't exactly see the livery on that car. Michael Kalaga, yep, very good there.
It certainly was Michael Kalaga. Let's have a quick look at what happened here. We've also got Taylor Lane that's had a moment as well. So let's have a quick look. So this is coming down now into the first. Is it just a bit of contact just coming across perhaps? So just coming across ever so slightly. Or do you know what? I think, to be fair, so you see Frederick Lavoie had a slightly slower run going into the corner. And I don't think it was something that, no,
yeah,
that's
stewards are not going to be happy about that. Yeah, that was, you could see Frederick waited for a second and then pulled out. Just unfortunate timing there.
Unfortunately so, as you say. So yeah, Michael Kalaga, you see coming down. I mean, at this point, it's completely blindsided. There's nothing that Kalaga could have done there. It's just very unfortunate timing. I think, and do you know what? I feel obviously for Michael Kalaga. I also feel for Frederick Lavoie, because you've got to be you've got to be committed, obviously, to reaching on the track. You have got to join the track safely, and it can be difficult because especially when with these cars, sometimes you find they're just bogged down and they don't really they don't do what you're wanting them to do in some scenarios, so it can be a little bit tricky. So I do certainly feel for both drivers there. Down a little bit further into the AM category, we have got Daniel Floria and Kyle Haslitsky that are having a little bit of battle. We've also got Steven Martinez a little bit further out. You can actually just see there. This is the battle kicking off for P7 in class. And Steven Martinez versus Drew Neubauer. And at the moment, Steven Martinez has made up that position on the number 47. Is there going to be a additional bit of cutback though? We've also got Errol Uriksoy, who's now starting to work his way through, currently now riding on board with the number 13 Race Anywhere Lamborghini. So he is starting to make his to make his way through. He's made up 8 positions so far, so doing another good drive and another good push through the field. We've seen Errol absolutely storming race at Sebring last week, which is a fantastic opportunity to watch. I was having a conversation with Errol before the race, and he was saying that was his best race of the season. Very, very happy, really happy with his performance. And it definitely shows in the driving as well. Seems to be comfortable, seems to be confident here. Patient as well, that's the key thing. We haven't talked about this a lot, but patience is very, very... Oh, someone's gone off. That was Kyle Haslitsky that's had a moment. So Kyle Haslitsky drops down. That's a freebie for everyone that's now behind. Depends when Kyle can rejoin. And how many people are going to be losing out on more positions. I think he settled in P9, so just actually behind now Errol Uriksoy. We saw this at the moment as well, didn't we? So Errol didn't necessarily make up as many positions to start with, but he's now starting to build the confidence, now starting to push forward, and he's confident in these overtakes. Look, going to try to the inside of Drew Neubauer. Is it going to be a done and dusted move? It is. So, realistically here, Uriksoy is really pushing forward quite aggressively, but in a very, very controlled way as well. It's a very good balance of driving here.
Yeah, what he's trying to do is make sure he can just catch the cars when he wants to, and if he tries to save some fuel during that, that's only more fuel he can have in the tank, so I'm sure he doesn't mind. The biggest problem here is when you do pass the car, if they're anywhere within 1 second behind you, they are going to sniff the draft down the straightaway, so you need to make sure that once you do pass a car, they can't get the draft and come back past you again. You also need to make sure there's a car that you can get the draft on in order to make sure you catch them, because if the cars get too far separated here, you can just kind of pull along a train of cars like we see in F1 all the time. You see one car be faster than another, but you just can't get past them or can't keep the position because they just draft past you down the straightaway every other lap.
Indeed, yes. Tactics, like I said, are a big thing here. Down in the bottom half the second half of the Pro Am field, you've got side by side between. That is Andrew Rasmussen and Ted Lane. Oh, Ted Lane's in the wall. Oh, that's a big shunt. That is a big shunt. We're going to see a replay of that at 100%. Did Taylor Lane manage to keep it out of the wall? I don't think he did. Certainly didn't look like it from that particular angle. But what happens here? Is it just a little bit too aggressive? Oh, well, there's a couple of things there. Netcode didn't help the situation at all. That's racing instant. Nothing could have been. That was just something that it happens. It's such an annoying. It's such a frustrating thing. Again, very much feel for Taylor Lane, because that's certainly going to be some damage that will have to be repaired. Yeah. That's a big shame there. A little bit of net code, and I think as well it may have looked like possibly a little bit drift over from Rasmussen, possibly a little bit further drifting wide from Taylor Lane. Just didn't come together at the wrong place, wrong time. I think for both drivers, unfortunately. Down at the front end in the first half of the field for the Pro Am field, that is Daniel Tenorio making a move on Tyler Campbell, and that is for P2 in class. So again, some good battling all around. And again, the AM category, like I said, that's the one that seems to have stabilised at this moment in time. I'm interested to see that there is certainly a couple of people that are going to be pushing through the field. Obviously, Eric Kalaga is definitely going to be pushing through the field. Currently running in P5. He's got Daniel Floria next to his sights around about 1.8 seconds. We have to see how the lap times sort of fare. But no one's really got slipstream in the Pro-Am field. So that's the interesting thing. This is really going to be... in the Am field. So this is very much going to be on who has out and outright pace at this moment in time.
Yeah, that's the one fortunate thing about there not being any draft sniff by the competitors is it's basically just an all-and-out pace race. There is no draft. there's no worry about pack racing or slingshot maneuvers. You're going to see. We're currently looking at John Cooper. This is a battle for fourth in class. This is going to be in your Pro-Am categories. These guys currently run down into the Ascari chicane here.
Ascari chicane, fantastic complex of corners, especially when you are in GT3 cars, because like I said, and we saw this with PJ Sturgis earlier on, you can really, really push the cars over the curb. It's a fantastic opportunity to really push the cars as hard as you possibly can. That was, we've actually just seen Mark Scott a little bit further down has passed Kyle Herzlitsky. So let's have a quick look at that and see where the overtake was made. Is it a possible slowdown? I don't think it was a slow. Yes, it was a slowdown. So Kyle Herzlitsky had a small slowdown, and that allowed Mark Scott to go through. So that was why that position changed hands then. Although this is it, we see Herzlitsky trying to now push back up the field. We know that the pace is there for Herzlitsky. Started actually in P10 where he is at the moment. And we're just going to see if he can maintain some position, maintain the momentum to catch up to the back of Mark Scott, and then retake that position. A couple of people now starting to come into the pit, interestingly enough. This is where it's going to really start to make sense. Whoa, a big moment there for Carl, the number 99 Boatman Racing. That has certainly cost him a lot of time, and arguably that's cost him the draft completely, well and truly. So that's something that's going to be something that's I'm sure that's going to be frustrating for Carl, but it's a long way to go. We've had 23 minutes and 29 seconds of this race, so we have not got long before everyone now comes in for the first round of pit stop. We may see probably another maybe 10-15 minutes here. It depends very much on the positions where everyone can be. Up the further field, in the pro field though, we've got James Pearce versus PJ Sturgis coming through the first chicane. Who is it going to be coming on top? Oh, there's a bit of a wiggle there for Sturgis in the number 57 Inex Racing, but manages to keep it all in check, with James Pearce giving just about enough room available. Justin Brunner has now started to make his way back up and is a little bit closer to the back of the number 23. So again, it's starting to. I wouldn't necessarily there's much sort of. There's a couple of little battles here. You more so tend to see that this is now just a bit of leapfrogging. And you almost like take it in turns, I think, in a way. You're almost working with each other. I think that's probably the sort of best way to put it. What you tend to find in this scenario, and this is certainly something that I've done in the... Whoa! Big moment. James Pearce, round of applause for you. Wowza. That was a save and a half. Blimey. Yeah, so you tend to see this, and whether this is a subconscious thing or something like that, but... I don't know about you, Austin, but when we used to race, especially in this scenario, you'd almost like let each other leapfrog you to give them an opportunity to try and catch up, and then you can get pulled along. Doesn't quite work out, you then swap a little bit, and then you try and do the same thing, and you just sort of, leapfrog each other to try and catch up if there's a bit of a gap between you.
Yeah, I've never really been able to do it on the road course racing circuits, but of course it is something they'll use it oftentimes in the Indianapolis 500. Of course, that's just a straight up drafting race. You can see teammates often will do that, especially if they'd like to make some progress or distance themselves from the rest of the field. But of course it will work even on the road courses. You see Andrew Rasmussen gets it a little bit out of whack there in Parabolica, but fortunately, he is able to steer back down to the inside of the curve there and get his car going. But yeah, I think that's even what Wills and Campbell were thinking about doing. But of course, it looks like they put a bit of a gap here on PJ Sturgis. But I think he is still in the draft wake, so he will be catching these guys faster and faster. But yeah, certainly you can even do it in NASCAR. On the baked courses like MIS now with a new package, or Talladega and Daytona. It's kind of draft with each other. It's not exactly a two-car push draft. But it is, you use a slingshot to get around each other, and that's only going to help you down the straightaway, get that overspeed, and kind of just keep trading that back and forth, and it will work. You have to trust the guy to make sure that he'll let you back pass, and of course doesn't block you. Blocking is one of the hardest things I have to get around on a track like this, especially if you get forced in the grass. But, if you're Sean Campbell, I don't think you need to worry too much about that, because, he's kind of shown that McLaren's kind of a bit like a lawnmower in that regard.
Certainly so. Certainly so. Again, it's great to see the different cars sort of getting involved. It's great to see the different cars being able to, to battle with each other. It's always fantastic to see. A little bit further down in the AM category, which we're going to look at in a few moments later, we've had a few more people now start to pit. This is now a battle between or a continuation of the battle between Errol Uruksoy and Stephen Martin. This is the battle for P6 in class. We see Carl Fredrickson, Jason Bridges, Dave Steffi going to the pit. So does Errol Uruksoy. But interestingly enough, Stephen Martinez manages to go another lap. So here comes Uruksoy into the pits from number 13, as well as a fair few other cars as it stands at the moment. Interesting. Seems to be, I think, to be fair, Errol was pushing very, very hard. We may now see afterwards, we may actually see a little bit more fuel saving from maybe some of these drivers. Now that they push forward, they've got a few places under their belt. They can start sort of pulling off a little bit, taking things a little bit easier, reassessing, and then going again. Does very much depend on... It depends on several things. But interesting enough, though, at the start, have a look at this. Sean Campbell, PJ Sergios, Justin Brunner. The three people that were able to save the most fuel. And we saw that in their driving. Harry Wills, Ryan Kaprowski, James Pearce, all in the pits. Harry Wills was leading for a majority of the race. So he was not able to save as much fuel. That has now come, and that is apparent. Probably not going to make too much of a difference this particular race, and this particular pit stop, sorry, but the second pit stop, that's where it's going to be the most. Sean Campbell runs a little bit wide. That may have cost him a little bit of time, but if anything, PJ Sergios is just going to sit behind him. There's no point trying to push, because all that's going to happen is you're then going to have the likes of Justin Brunner that's going to catch up. That gap is going to compress, and you're going to be, shooting yourself in the foot at this point. So it seems to be that Sergios has a slightly better car underneath him as it stands. Seems to be that Sean Campbell just running a little bit wide. Maybe the tyres aren't coping just as much at this phase of the race. And again, we're going to see Sturgis. He might try and make the overtake possibly to try and get track position, because if he is, there we go. There's the position gained there straight away. What you'll probably find now is whoever now comes into the pits, I wonder if Sean Campbell left that move because he's now going to try and do exactly the same thing as what Sturgis did going into Parabolica. Whoever gets track position going into the pits, that's actually a surprisingly key thing. You see Sturgis defending on the inside. He's not going to want to allow Sean Campbell to come round. It's a tricky position here for Sean Campbell. He's going to be committed going around the outside. I don't think he's going to try and do it. There's no point if they both come into the pits at the same time. But Sturgis is going to have the advantage. I wonder, are they both going to go another lap? Interesting. Wow, Sean Campbell, fair play. Hats off to you, because Sean Campbell has managed to go an additional lap. That is impressive stuff.
Yeah, one of the things I want to touch on too with Errol Uruksoy, you can see kind of caught Steve Martinez. He decided, you know what, I'm going to come into the pits. That's him basically saying, I think I'm faster than you even without the draft. I'd like to just do this on my own pace. You can see now Sean Campbell, apparently he believes he has enough fuel to make it another extra lap. Could have been PJ Sturgis, maybe playing it a little bit safe. The iRacing calculator for fuel is kind of wonky sometimes. Oftentimes it'll go down 1/10 lap at a time. Sometimes it'll go down 2 or 3 at a time. Sometimes it won't move for a hot second as well. As you can see, Brent Bravata and John Cooper currently fighting for what is 6th position in the Pro-Am category. These guys are currently going at it pretty hard here, both in Lamborghinis, so they should have a pretty similar balance in terms of car overall speed and downforce, but of course each driver can kind of custom fit it for what they prefer to get out of their cars. You can see Errol Uruksoy out of the pits here, heading down into turn 1. There's Steve Martinez, so you can see he is going to end up overcutting him. That's what we call it in Formula One. That's an overcut because he went longer than him in the pits and came out ahead of him. If it were an undercut, he would have pitted earlier and still come out ahead.
Absolutely perfect stuff. Yes, very, very true. And you said that absolutely perfectly there, Austin. It was a very, very good strategy there from Uruksoy. And that has now allowed that gap to really sort of extend. We're going to have to see, again, how that gap extends moving forward. But a little bit further, again, into the Pro-Am category now, we have Brent Bravata versus John Cooper. So they are now battling. They're going to go side by side down into the first chicane. It's a drag race. They're both in exactly the same car. It's Lamborghini versus Lamborghini. It's just going to be the setup that is different. One way, Brent Bravata darts one way, then darts the other. John Cooper's got the inside line. He's going to have the inside for turn 1, the outside for turn 2. Is he going to be able to make it stick? He probably just see releases the brakes ever so slightly there. Oh, there's a bit of contact between the two. I don't think. Always a bit more contact between the two.
Archie there. Wow, these guys are really going at it. I don't think they're giving each other enough space, and of course, just enough space to kind of get by. You can see going into the first chicane there, one driver went a bit too wide, then another driver took all that track back.
Yeah, it's a tricky one. The chicane coming through down, the turn 1 and turn 2 chicane, you've got to be very, very committed, and you've got to have a good understanding of the driver next to you to be able to give them to make sure that you give each other enough room. Which
one thing I'd like
it
to
was
touch
minor.
on too, yeah, you actually just cut to this. PJ Sturgio's going to pass Mark Scott here and Dave Neubauer heading down into the turn 1 chicane here. This, of course, PJ had a huge gap in the air, huge air bubble, huge piece of draft from these two cars ahead of him currently fighting for position. They kind of stalled each other out there, and then PJ Sturgios is able to make it 3 wide, make that pass. He, of course, is in a different class today. We're not losing a position to PJ Sturgios. They were kind of just letting it by. PJ was fortunate. He didn't have to lose too much time, and they were kind of fortunate too. They didn't have to lose too much time to PJ. Now they can kind of draft behind him. This is something I look to happen a lot during this race. Is this guys in slower classes, slower overall. Of course, all these drivers are in the same car. Could be a bit of a car setup balance. Sometimes, though, the cream always rises to the top. I look for some of these slower guys to try draft behind PJ, especially down the straightaways. Might lose a bit of time in the corners just because they don't exactly have the same pace. Maybe sometimes it comes down to car setup and PJ just knows what kind of shocks and springs and air to run on his cars more so than the rest of these guys like Mark Scott. But again, all these guys are just, they're in their own competitive classes, having their own competitive races. So you can see PJ Sturgio is going to take a lot of curb here on both sides. You can kind of see the drivers in the lower classes not taking as much curb. And I think that's all just about whatever you're more comfortable with.
Certainly so. Certainly so. You've got to be comfortable. You've got to be committed over those curbs. It's a little bit strange to start with. But for example, if you go into the over the curbs and you push yourself over the curbs, and you're not committed in doing so, that's when accidents happen, and that's when you get pinged up in the air, and it really doesn't work all that well. So, you've got to make sure that you are, you've got to make sure that you're committed, especially when you go over the curves, because they will spit you out if you are not. There's pros and cons. There's always pros and cons to pretty much everything in regards to sim racing and in regards to real racing as the like. So curbs, yes, they're faster, are a little bit more tricky to manage. Steven Martinez is now very much on the back of Errol Uriksoy. So is that going to be a position gained at some point, or is Steven Martin simply going to hold back and try and get Uriksoy to pull him forward and catch up so they can both catch up to the likes of Carl Fredriksson? The gap is 3.8 seconds as it stands. Eric Kalaga is actually pulling Fredriksson along, so it's simply just a battle of who is going to be faster. Interestingly enough, though, what I'm actually having a look at here is Jason Bridges. This is, Daniel Flores in P2. Only a second up the road. Seems to have got a very, very slow exit. That will cost him a significant amount of time, though. You can see Jason Bridges. I wonder if a move's going to happen here. Maybe not into Parabolica, but I reckon a move might happen into turn 1. You can just see Uriksoy just there. This is the top 4. They're actually going to pull themselves along. You can see Uriksoy trying to break the toe there as well. As we see Florio go a little bit wide. Jay Steffi has just disappeared into the distance at this point by about 15 seconds. He's absolutely gone. So Jay Steffi really, really on a mission to get a win. He's made up 7 positions so far. 7 positions. And he's extended his gap by around sort of 14 seconds. Absolute madness. Eric Kalaga is going to be possibly up the inside. Around the outside, of Jason Bridges, and that was it. Done and dusted move. Eric Kalaga, just out of nowhere, decides that he wants to now come up and he wants to be in P3 for a change. So he's now taken the final step of that podium as it stands at the moment, with 35 minutes having gone. So 40 minutes remain. Less than 40 minutes remain, actually. And it is still very much open, very much on the cards, especially with who's going to get this P2 position.
Yeah, certainly very much in the cards. If Dan makes one mistake, I feel like that's his race done. I think anymore he's for sure has a chance at a top 5 at that point. But if he does go run too wide in a certain corner, I think he's just going to get freight trained by the 3 guys behind him, being Kalaga, Bridges, and Fredriksson. I will say though, I haven't seen Eric Kalaga catch Dan very much over the course of these straightaways. So I'm not sure. Maybe Dan Floria has his car a little bit more trimmed out than these other guys, so you might be able to catch him in the corners. Of course, there is dirty air, but down the straightaways, I think he could kind of just hold them at bay. We'll have to keep an eye on that battle, as we see right now John Cooper and Brent Bravata currently going at each other. This is them heading down into what I believe is Parabolica, given the camera angle. You can see John Cooper pulling a little bit of a slide job here, enters low, comes back up. Sort of that's just the line through Parabolica, and now this is live, them heading down into the turn 1 chicane here.
But yes, John Cooper making a move on Brent Bravata as it stands. Sean Campbell's lost some time. Sean Campbell lost some time in the pits. Could be a couple of reasons for that. Maybe some repairing some damage. You can see he's actually top lefty of your time in tower. He's a P3, possibly a P2 in a few moments' time if he can get past Harry Wills, but doesn't make the move stick at the moment. Yeah, it could be a couple of reasons.
Say, though, yeah, it could be a couple of reasons. I think one of them, though, is because all these guys have lost kind of about the same exact amount of time to PJ Sturgis, I believe what he's done is underfueled his car for the second stint. You can see he's all the way down at the other end of the straightaway. You can see as we rode on board, kind of look behind these guys, you can see PJ's car all the way down the front stretch. I think he put a little bit less fuel in his car during that pit stop so he could get out ahead of these guys. Maybe he'll just decide to race to the field. Of course, there isn't a whole lot of slipstreaming right now, so maybe currently Sean and Justin just trying to maybe run around and save fuel right now so they don't have to take as much fuel and can maybe even pit earlier or pit sooner, or just, like I said, like you said too, take less fuel, spend less time in the pits, more time out on track. You can see big incident here. Sturgis almost getting involved. This is between Steven Martinez and Errol Urixoy currently. I believe they're in between. That's going to be the second chicane, actually.
It certainly is. Look at what is happening behind there. We're actually going to jump now. This is the pro field. This is the battle. Sean Campbell storms past around the outside, going through Harry Wills. I'm not really sure what happened there. Again, we're going to have a couple of replays. One of Urixoy and Martinez, and then one of what happened just back here. But Sean Campbell does not take absolutely anything. You can see flashing lights already.
This is going to get really interesting here between these two groups of cars. We're going to have to see who kind of lets through here and how fast they let that happen, because these are currently, there's one battle here. This is the battle in the pro category between Campbell, Wills, Brenner, and Pierce. And then just ahead of them, it looks like that's going to be Martinez. I don't know who that middle car is, but that's Urixoy in the back. These guys are in their own battle right now. They're not obliged to let the cars behind them by. It's on the faster car to get by the slower car. I believe that is going to be Blake Scott in the red Lamborghini, currently looking at the inside of Steven Martinez here, going into Parabolica. Looks like he'll be able to complete that pass here as we look at Sean Campbell still. Now we're going to look at Steven Martinez as they go down the front stretch, currently riding along in the blimp. You can kind of see every battle here. This is what the draft does, folks. You can see the car behind gets a huge boost to speed here because he doesn't have to cut a line through the air. Right now we're looking, there we go, through the pit straight camera. This is the front straightaway, 3 wide down into turn 1.
Oh, this is going to be tricky. Errol Urixoy dives up on the brake. Is it going to be too late? Oh, he pushes, he squeezes just about enough. Oh, there's a bit of contact. That's Sean Campbell. He's gone. Thank you very much. He's got a position. That's it. Very good from Sean Campbell. Timed that absolutely perfectly. He's got a couple of cars in between now, himself and Harry Wills in P3. That is absolutely exactly what he wanted to do. And having a look, this is just too close to go. What on earth is going to happen here? Harry Wills is going to try and go around the outside. Urixoy is going to have to concede the position, but then not concede the position to... that's going to be to, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, that was Mark Scott. So there is Harry Wills then getting through. So he's now, but he's lost position. Look at that. He's lost about a second. He's not in the draft window anymore. You can see now a little bit further down, it's Justin Brunner's turn to try and get by, but he's being pressured by James Pierce, and he's also now got to try and get through 3 cars. But the 3 cars leading this train now is still Steven Martinez, and then you've got Errol Urixoy, and then Mark Scott. I really don't know who's going to be able to get in front. It's going to be Justin Brunner's going to try and throw it up the inside. No, Urixoy is going to have to concede, but have a look at that. What's happened there? Because Mark Scott's just gone through. Oh, big contact. Mark Scott versus Errol Urixoy. They come together. There is contact. I really don't think there was anything that could be done there. It was just too many cars in one place at the same time.
Yeah, Sean Campbell even went through a huge slide in the second turn of the Ascari chicane, even set him up really, really bad for an accident. He actually slid through the grass, too. He's able to keep control of his car. He didn't cut the corner, just went a bit wide, which is okay through the Ascari chicane. You can see it looks like Errol under braking just got a little bit loose there. Had to kind of give the car a wiggle. You can see PJ Sturgis almost get involved and take the front end of Steven Martinez's car, just clean that fascia off the front end of the car. So we're going to look at Errol Urixoy and Steven Martinez now. This is how that all started. You can see just a little bit too deep on the brakes. Needs to correct the car. I think that might have been just a little bit of net code. As you can see, Errol's going to stop right now and let Steven get back going again. So currently, that's nothing what they wanted to do, and that's going to allow Mark Scott to get up inside that battle. Now we're going to look at Ken Saska here. Looks like he's just going to get into a little bit of a lazy spin here, have to take his car off course in order to not completely spin it out. And then he does spin it out trying to get it going. These cars, very hard to get going once you leave the track. You can see a little bit of a net code damage there. Mark Scott going to have to cut the last turn of the Ascari chicane after almost hitting Errol York. So I don't think that made any contact. I think it was just very close between the two cars. One thing I'd like to touch base, though, is we got
sorry, that was ignore that one.
turn his car around as we go back live. Currently, Sean Campbell has almost a 10-second deficit to PJ Sturgios. You know, when they came back out of the pits, that was only 7 seconds, so that's really hurt him trying to get through that lap car. That, of course, you know, PJ could say he planned for that. He didn't plan for those 3 seconds to be added to his lead. You know, he'll just say he caught the lap cars at a better moment in time, and of course, you know, he's not running to say he did kind of plan for that. But of course, you know, that's nothing Sean Campbell did wrong or anyone else did wrong. You know, these guys are all having their own battles at the exact same time out on track here.
Absolutely. You know, you've got to be on the understanding, haven't you, that, you know, realistically, you know, if you're pushing hard, obviously you're battling with other people, they're battling also other people as well. And it just all, you know, sometimes it can come together at the wrong time. But yeah, I mean, Sean Campbell, you know, realistically is you know, absolutely sort of in a, he's in a good position because he's now broken the gap to Harry Wills. So he just now needs to push forward and he'll be absolutely fine. PJ Sturgios, though, a bit of a wiggle there. That's cost him a big amount of time. Might have even cost him possibly a slowdown, depends. He seemed to cut the curb quite an aggressive amount. And has it cost him? No, it has not. He managed to get away with that. Would have been close, though. Yeah, 3 seconds added to PJ Sturgios' time. He has underfueled the car. So in theory, he should be faster anyway. Last lap times, obviously, I know that Sean Campbell not necessarily may have been an optimal lap for him, but ultimately lost half a second again to PJ Sturgio. So we'll have to see how that battle continues. Well, I'd say how the gap continues to sort of ebb and flow. We are going to see it come up. We're going to see it come down as well. PJ Sturgio, you know, he's yet to hit probably what seems to be a considerable amount of traffic. That could very well be exactly the same thing and happen. You won't get as much time lost because you're not battling with as many people. But there could be a sort of second deficit possibly that may happen. We're not 100% sure yet. We just have to sort of see how it goes, see how it pans out. So it's not over yet. Really, you know, we need to take this sort of with a pinch of salt at the moment. We've got half an hour remaining. Probably another 15 minutes or so. Maybe a little bit less for PJ Sturgios in terms of the next pit stop and the final pit stops. And then we're going to have a good idea of who's where.
Yeah, 2 things I want to just point out, though, about Sean Campbell's car. It looks like he has a little bit of damage in the left front, and I think he got that trying to fight his way up through the field, trying to pass, of course, the cars in his own class, especially when they were trying to pass the cars in the lower class, what was going to be, at that point in time, the AM category. So I think he's even losing more time due to that. And, of course, his car keeps getting really, really loose. I can see him literally drifting through the second part of the Ascari chicane, so he might have used up his tires here. We'll have to see as we right now look at Brent Bravata currently in front of John Cooper here. This battle has been going, I kid you not, since we last looked at them. They've been trading places back and forth on the leaderboard. You can see right now we'll ride along with John Cooper as they head down into the Ascari chicane. Right now this is going to be a left, right, left. He's going to cut the curb. This is, again, not too aggressive a cut of the curb. If you do any more than that, though, you risk, you know, really putting the car on 2 wheels and running too wide, especially getting the car a little bit loose. Just popping up in the air like that really upsets the car if you do it wrong. If you do it right, you nail it, you get a huge run down the straightaway here. But again, I believe he's just kind of saving his fuel right now, biding his time behind Brent here.
You save your fuel now, and then you push forward as soon as the next pit stop has happened. You know, it doesn't seem like a lot. You possibly want to push like maybe the last like 2 or 3 laps before you come in for your last pit stop, but pushing once you've done your fuel saving is the best way to do it, because you know you don't have to worry about it then. As long as you've got enough fuel to then run to the end and you can start pushing the car, you have nothing to worry about. You are then in complete control of the ability to simply drive. You don't have to worry about anything else. That is the key thing. Mark Scott has had a small little incident here. I wonder what has happened. Possibly going through is it just a little bit too deep? No, I think loses it on his own accord, it looks to be there. I don't think there's any contact.
He just lost it on his own there. It looks like he ended up involving, I believe that is Brewer behind him. It's either Brewer or Kaprowski. It's very hard to tell from this angle. Of course, it was hard to kind of see the number on that car, but yeah, you can see. Currently just took the hood off his car. You might have been able to do something like that at Sebring, but unfortunately here at Monza, you're going to need all the body work you can get on that car. So unfortunately, oh wow, you can see Brent Bravata there getting it a little bit sideways going into the second Lesmo there. John Cooper going to look to his outside here, heading down into the Ascari chicane. See if he lets him have it here. I think he's going to have to. I think he might have even gotten a cutting the course penalty. That's why he's currently letting it by. You can see, yep, John's just going to complete the move, but I would look for Brent definitely to try to take it back here, going down the back straight, or especially, get a great run out of Parabolica and down the front straightaway, down into the turn 1 chicane.
You gain time here, and then you make the move into turn 1. We are probably going to see that. Ryan Kaprowski is now in the pits, one of the earlier pit stoppers in the number 61 Audi in the pro field. So we had a little bit of time gained from Bravata, but not as much as I initially would have thought. The gap is around half a second as it stands. It's now starting to come down. You can see in the bottom right and the far left. So Kaprowski obviously is still losing some positions here, but yeah, around about 2/10 were gained by Brent Bravata. That's very, very late on the brakes. Manages to get it stopped. There's a car that's on the edge of the circuit. Who is that? I think it might be Andrew Hewington that was on... Andrew Hewson that was on the back and was just on the exit of the start of turn 2. I'm not sure what happened there. Let's see if we can get a bit of a replay and have a quick look. But Pro-Am is... Everyone's started to settle now. I think it's certainly taken longer than I initially would have thought. It was a bit similar to last week as well. I think now we're getting a bit later into the championship. You are tending to see people try and take a few more liberties, a few more risks at the start of races because they want to, ultimately they want to try and make some positions up. So, you've got to be controlled. You've got to be pretty on the ball here. But yeah, I think everything's started to settle now. And for these last remaining minutes within the race, I think now this is where everyone's going to have to start, driving a little bit more conservatively. Whoa, that was a little bit cautious there. Who was that? Couldn't quite see who that was. That was Ryan Kaprowski, I believe.
Yeah, I think you're right there, Dan. You can see he just got forced wide heading down to the Ascari chicane and realizes he has more cars kind of behind him that also need to come through the pack, so they're just going to let that happen because, of course, he doesn't want to just cut down and then ruin the race for Brent Bravata here. He saw John Cooper get let by, as we're going to see Andrew Hewson come down in the turn 1 chicane.
Oh,
wow,
no.
Yeah, he just got cleaned out by the car behind him there. Not much he could do in that situation. I believe that might have been a component failure, possibly even hardware failure on the car behind him. Looks like that was Matthew Alvis in his BMW. I think that'll be day done for him as, he does park it, and I assume we'll see him tow here from the racetrack. And, yep, he does indeed do that. So, looked like he was a bit late to stop, so I believe he might have had a hardware failure in real life. Of course, it's impossible to tell when those are coming. And Houston there just, not of his own doing, but unfortunately that's going to be a very hard lick for him.
I mean, as you say, very, very possibly that was just something that, again, could have been a hardware failure. Could have been something that just didn't happen. It looked, in a way, that may have just been a possible sort of misjudge of braking marker, and it's hard. I've done it. I've done it in going into turn 1 and turn 2, especially at Monza. It's a tricky complex. It's a very, very tricky complex because you're going so fast and it's such an aggressive braking zone. Andrew Hewitt's actually just had a moment as well, so I'll look at a bit of a replay on that. As we've got Eric Kalaga and the Daniel Floria that are having a good, nice little battle here, which is great to see. We're actually going to ride on board with Daniel Floria in a few moments. Fantastic. Good to see again. Lamborghini versus McLaren still going strong. So there's battles up and down the field. There is the onboard with Daniel Floria, the number 20. So we're going to see how this develops. Stewards are going to obviously will be looking at that, seeing what happened, seeing what went wrong. And then obviously they will be able to make a decision based off of that. But I feel, again, for both drivers. Can Daniel Floria get past Eric Kalaga? Or again, this is for P3 and this is the battle for P2. So Daniel Floria is still going to get some good times on the board, to be fair here. Is it going to be something that we're just going to We've actually... Okay, there we go. We've got that confirmation from Matthew Alvis saying I had a massive screen freeze. And Matthew, I feel for you dearly because I've been in that situation. It is never nice. So feel for you a lot there. Here is Justin Brunner getting past Harry Wills. I wonder if Harry Wills had a slightly poor exit or a possible slowdown coming out of the second Lesmo. So that's a position gained there for Justin Brunner. So he now moves up into P2. So McLaren 1-2 currently in the Pro field. And then we're currently leading by Wilson Brewers, leading in the Audi in the Pro-Ams. And then we have a Porsche leading within the AM field. So we've got 3 different leaders in 3 different classes, in 3 different cars.
Yeah, one thing that's really interesting to me is just how long Daniel Florea was able to hold on to second place, and now Eric Kalaga is almost holding on to second place in the same kind of gap. I wonder if that's almost, the 2 drivers saying, I'll save fuel behind you, and then the other guy gets past and says, you know what, I think I'll be the one saving fuel now. I'm not sure if we're getting into some of that. I know it is about time for that final pit stop, so it'll be interesting to see, just when they end up pitting here and how much fuel they can end up taking. Right now, I would think Kalaga has a lot less fuel to take than Daniel here, but we'll just have to see as we come down in the race what Florea can do here back to Kalaga to possibly take back the second step on the podium.
It's going to be, we haven't got too long to find out, another 22 minutes, then we're going to find out who is going to be taking the first, second and third positions in each class. Obviously that will give that will certainly shape the championship a little bit more again as we move forward. Further down in the AM category, we are seeing currently Jay Steffi's actually just gone in the pits. Interesting enough. So there comes Jay Steffi for the Q3 Sim Sports, the number 49. Look at that beard, fantastic beard photo, bottom left. That's a great beard. Jay Steffi leading the way, the number 49. He will be losing a couple of positions. Obviously, there goes Eric Kalaga and Daniel Florea. It depends when both Kalaga and Florea pit. That's going to give a good indication of, when, again, this is now going to be the second of the last pit stop. So we're now going to start getting a better understanding of who is where and, sort of where people are going to be in terms of their positions, and also are they going to have to push too much? Are they not going to be pushing too much? It's very much up in the air. We aren't 100% sure until everyone comes in the pits. We are not 100% sure what is going to happen. But ultimately, what we can do is wait until everyone goes to their pit stops, and then we can start pushing forward from there.
Yeah, we're just going to have to be patient to see how this race unfolds. Currently, it's been an absolute treat to watch. These drivers are always really good at giving each other just enough space to make the moves they need to. You can see right now we're looking at Ken Saska as he tries to hunt down Andrew Hewitt and his McLaren. So currently, these drivers just, putting it all out there on the line. That you can see they're in 26th and 27th place overall, but of course in their own class, of which they are in the AM category, of course 12th and 13th right now.
Certainly so. Michael Valles just passed Tyler Campbell, but that isn't actually for class position. John Casey's had a bit of a moment off circuit. I wonder what's happening. Oh, that's not good, is it? Touching the curb and then touching the inside Armco barrier. That's an unusual thing. Normally you tend to see that you tend to see a bit more commonly that everyone runs a little bit wide going through out of the, on the exit of the first Lesmo. So interesting that we've actually had someone that goes maybe a little bit too deep that time. That's something I have certainly not seen before. Battle for the lead, though, here. Actually, it was at one point, I think, Carl Fredrickson, Stephen Martinez, and Errol Uriksoy. So this is a battle that's still continuing on. In fact, it was continuing for another 2 seconds as I said that, and as I finished my thoughts, Uriksoy decided that he wanted to go into the pits. Again, a slightly earlier pit stop for some of these drivers. Sean Campbell is the person to keep an eye out for. PJ Sturgis is now having completed his second pit stop. Harry Wills has now come into the second pit stop. Where is Harry Wills going to come out? It's going to be, unfortunately, nowhere near, because Harry Wills is still in the pit. He's just coming onto pit exit now, and that is going to be a massive time loss, around about 11 seconds, maybe even 12 seconds to PJ Sturgis at the moment. So Sturgis is definitely
PJ's
clear Harry
really-
Wills.
Yeah, exactly. He's currently running down in the long right-hander into the second chicane. As you can see, Will is just now entering the first chicane. So it looks like, again, a little bit of that fuel miscalculation. And of course, PJ, I think he was helped a lot by that battle between the pro cars and then the AM category cars. So just a bit unfortunate for what should cycle out to be second, third, and fourth place cars. But I would not be too surprised to see Sean Campbell kind of saving his fuel, able to put in a lot less on the second pit stop here and come out, maybe even give PJ Sturgis a run for his money for the over a win here. You can see Ken currently right on the tailpipes of Andrew Hewitt here in his McLaren. So this is a fantastic McLaren versus Lamborghini battle. You love to see this as a fan, especially, I'm sure, the people that put on this series to make sure that these different cars can run side by side, nose to tail for as long as possible, and just put on a great show. That way, whatever car you choose, whatever car suits your fancy, not everybody on the service has enough money to go buy, all 6 or 7 cars that you offer in the GT3 category. There's even some that they've retired, like the BMW Z4. So could you imagine having to buy all those for depending on which one was the strongest at a certain track? No, you just pick a car, whatever you like, maybe choose whatever looks the best or has a cool paint scheme on it to begin with. You find on Trading Paints. That's just what you can go out there, run with, and be competitive.
Absolutely. Yes, 100%. Oh, that was a bit deep on the brakes there for Ken Suska,
that was
wasn't it?
really deep there for Sasuke. You can see he's just trying to get absolutely all of it he can out of the car. It looks like, again, we've talked about the McLaren not being the best on the brakes, but of course it puts the power down extremely well. So maybe the second risk at braking, maybe if Ken were in a Porsche, it seems like he's got that whole late braking thing down to science here.
Well, he certainly has. That was something I didn't expect to happen, really. It's something I certainly didn't expect to stop. For a moment there, I was like, "Oh, this is going to be an interesting. This is going to be an interesting camera angle to view this."
Almost like a punch right here. We're going to catch it live.
Yeah, it was. Obviously, glad it didn't happen because then we're going to be treated to some more racing a little bit further down. But realistically, I think there are always strengths and weaknesses between these cars. Absolutely, the Porsche is just amazing on the brakes. Doesn't matter what Porsche it is, they are just fantastic on the brakes, especially the RSR, obviously the GTE category. It's the latest, you can brake the latest out of any of the GTE cars. It's just ridiculous. It's got really good traction. May not be the most stable at the front end. May sort of induce a bit of understeer possibly. So there's always the pros and cons to cars all of the time. It really just sort of depends on what works best for you at the time, what suits your driving style. As you were saying, Austin, and I did this as well a little bit actually, which I shouldn't have done in theory. I'm going to interrupt myself here because we have got Blake Scott versus John Cooper. Still, is it going to be side by side going through turns 1 and 2? Yes, it is. And who is going to come on top? It seems to be Blake Scott, but John Cooper's decided that he wants to go against the grain, and now he's going to go up the inside. He's actually got track position currently, and he does now take the position. Is there going to be something? Is Blake Scott going to try and get the move back? He might try and do, if anything. No, you can see just in the delta.
I don't think he will down here. He's just kind of getting that clean air on his nose as they break into here. I think what he's going to do is either try it down the backstretch or try it down turn 1, kind of the same way John did it to him there, especially going through that turn 1 chicane. What's some fantastic heads-up driving though by both these guys to give each other enough room to kind of make the pass and not just pulling over for the guy. You're racing him, gutsy move on John's part to kind of shove it down in there and go side by side through the chicane. They didn't need to do that for each other, but of course that's the kind of great racing and great show that these drivers put on week in and week out. We're going to see a replay here of Kyle Fredrickson.
Unfortunately, not the best angle. So Kyle Fredrickson, that's over the Ascari chicane. That is not good. Manages to keep it off of the circuit. Well avoided there. So Kyle Fredrickson managing to keep it facing in what would be the right direction off of the circuit. So fantastic stuff there. A little bit further up the field in the Pro-Am categories. We haven't really spoken about for the moment. Blake Scott and John Cooper, well, they are still continuing their battles back and forth in the the two Lamborghinis, number 18 and number 22. And it is going to be once cousins, again. Maybe. Cousin, yeah, I think, like second cousins, like twice removed or something. But they are, again, side by side. We haven't seen this before, have we? This is going to be a carbon copy, possibly what happened a little bit earlier on. Who is going to come on top? It is going to be John Cooper, still maintains that lead as it stands, but John Cooper now securing firm with that position, having made up 10 positions since the start of this race. Fantastic stuff indeed. One thing I did notice as well, Uruksoy did manage to go and to get back past even Martinez, so that's a move that actually is going to be interesting. Similar sort of place here, carbon copy, but just the complete reverse, and it's going to be Uruksoy managing to keep that momentum up, pushing the car through the corner nicely. Martinez, though, again, fair play for giving the racing room that was required there. Maybe could have squeezed Uruksoy a little bit more, but ultimately they both got through unscathed.
Yeah, you can see this is currently the closest battle we have on track here. Just to give you guys an update at home about the battle for the overall lead. All the current drivers in the pro category have made their final pit stop, so you can see the current intervals on the left side of your screen there. Campbell currently with a 5-second deficit, but he's currently eating that up lap after lap, corner after corner, getting closer and closer to Sturgio. So you can see John Cooper currently trying to stay ahead of Blake Scott behind him here as they go down the straightaway, kind of just swerving, doing a little bit of a serpentine maneuver down the straight to make sure he can kind of break that draft, make sure that Blake can't get any closer. But of course, he's really going to get really closer in the braking for the Parabolica as they go through the final corner of the lap here down the front straightaway. Currently, Blake is just trying to snip as much of a draft as he can here, see if he can try to outbrake John into this turn 1 chicane here, see if he can maybe try to repay the favor to John here, as there was 2 laps ago.
Yes, what is going to happen this time out? Again, Blake Scott just sort of maintaining. He's not doing anything at the moment. If anything, I think it's actually a wise thing to do. You've got about 12 and a half minutes left of this race, with possibly obviously the additional lap. So if anything, I'd try and make the positions. If you're going to make the positions, I'd try and make them maybe around the last sort of like 5 minutes probably. I think that would be the best thing there. Just have a look at the front of the field. So PJ Sturgio is still leading the race, obviously, naturally, as we assumed that was going to be the case. But Sean Campbell, the gap has gone from about 11 and a half seconds to around about 6, just over 6 seconds. It does mean, though, that I think, to be fair, Sean Campbell, with the traffic that he hit earlier on along with Harry Wills and Justin Brunner, there's about 3.5 seconds lost. So it does mean that without that, the gap would be nearer 3 seconds, maybe 3.5, which is probably a lot more manageable. 6 seconds, especially when you've only got about 10, 12 minutes left, can feel like a pretty tall order. It's certainly not impossible, especially with multi-class racing. But it is also something that we don't want to. It's also something that we don't want to. We want to, we're ever the pessimist. We want to make sure that, again, once everyone, now that everyone's got their last pit stops, you know where everyone is. However, now you've got the understanding of, well, what's going to happen in the last 5 minutes? It could just everything could change. And we've seen that before, actually, both in this series, I've seen it in other series as well. The final 5 minutes are sometimes quite frantic. And I like to say as well, the calm before the storm this is, because it has settled down a little bit now. But in these last few moments, it is going to be absolutely madness.
Yeah, especially we've seen it in real life countless times where you feel like someone's won over the entire field. It's all done and dusted. Then they can blow a tire, put a wheel wrong, or even get involved in another car's accident. You can see, again, maybe there's a mechanical failure or a real life component hardware failure that takes maybe PJ Sturgis out. It's his own brake pedals to block out, of course, knock out Ward 4 to make sure that doesn't happen, or even so behind him. Maybe Andrew there going into the turn 1 chicane. Maybe he has a lockup on accident and, of course, slides into the back of PJ. That's not going to happen in these cars because they do have the ABS, but of course that could happen. You can see very close side-by-side racing there through the first Lesmo. They're going to come down here into the second Lesmo. This is between Blake Scott and John Cooper. Great move, like you said, around the outside. This is some fantastic driving.
Certainly is. Credit as well. Obviously, credit to Blake Scott for making a move on the outside. Credit to John Cooper for giving him the space. Absolutely fantastic stuff. A couple of replays to go through. Harry Wills is one of them, having a small excursion. This is going into the second Lesmo. Oh, wow, well held. Well held there. Harry Wills got Andrew Hewitt that had also a small moment. The McLaren, very, very tricky car, very easy car to have that. That was on the first Lesmo. And then we've also got Justin Brando, who's had another moment. I wonder where this is. Didn't look like too much time, Josh. It's another McLaren. This is, oh, look at that. It's one of the Lesmo corners. That was simply just running a fraction too wide. That's all that will be. That is nothing major. Yes, it is going to be an incident, but that's negligible.
Yeah, honestly, for him, that was probably, he might have been a little bit scared going to the outside of the track there, putting his left side's a bit the same, but definitely, not as probably scared as we saw Harry Wills get. I'm sure his eyes were pretty wide in that moment, definitely clenched as he had to put some opposite wheel steer into the car there just to make sure he could hold on to it.
Indeed. Michael Fowler for the Race Anywhere number 54 Audi has been plugging away, having made up 6 positions overall since the start of this race. It's been sort of trundling along. Seems to be a bit of no man's land at the moment, unfortunately. Currently running in P14 overall and P27 overall and P14 in class. Battles starting to sort of come up a little bit. We've actually just got another couple of replays for you. Jason Bridges is one of them. This is the moment going into. That will be why. That's not the cleanest way to go over the first chicane, but it's certainly one way to go over the first chicane. But again, I can't imagine there was any damage there. Maybe a bit of underfloor, but it'll be a tiny, tiny bit. You can be aggressive with these cars.
Yeah, and that's just heads-up driving there. He knew he wouldn't possibly make the chicane, so instead of trying to put more wheel into it and spin the car out, he'd much rather just kind of cut it right down the center. You're going to go over those rumble strips there to the sausage curbs as they are, but of course, no harm, no foul. It might lose a bit of time just by having that slow down. The incidents, I'm sure they're not a problem for him. His car is, of course, in impeccable condition, so I'm sure that's probably the first couple X's he's gotten all race, so that's just heads-up driving.
Indeed. What happened to Blake Scott? Whoa, that was a big save. Does he keep out of the barrier? Yes, wow. Blake Scott does indeed.
Save. That's incredible. To put the car off like that, have to give it some wheel back to the left, go off to the other side of the track, and then have to give it wheel back to the right just to hold on to it. That is like 2 saves in one right there. That's very impressive.
Actually, the car itself looked like it lost traction. Almost in the mid corner, I'd say. That looked like where it lost the position, where it lost the rear end. This is Carl Fredrickson going up the inside of Steven Martinez, going through turn number 3, Curva Grande, and they're going into turn 4. So that was a move done and dusted. It seemed that Steven Martinez had a slightly slower exit, going out of the first chicane, I should say. Again, nothing to say that position won't then come back. The gap between both of them, between Fredrickson and Martinez, is still only half a second. That half a second is well within drafting window. There is only 7 minutes left to go. So if something is going to happen, it needs to happen relatively soon. Otherwise, simply, we're going to see Martinez run out of time.
Yeah, unfortunately for him, he's just trying to do all he can possibly to, catch back up to Kyle Fredrickson in the car ahead of him. And I want to touch on this too. You mentioned it at the top of the show, Daniel. We saw Kyle Fredrickson spin his car out into the middle of the Ascari chicane. Again, one of the drivers in the Mercedes. We don't see too many drivers choosing the Mercedes, and I think you touched on it at the beginning. Kind of hard to control. Some drivers, it might not be. Of course, when you do push limits with certain cars, they're going to get harder and harder to control. I feel like that's just what we're seeing from the Mercedes here. As you see Joseph Smith trying to dive down to the inside of Mark Scott here, going down to the turn 1 chicane. This is some Lamborghini on Lamborghini action. Going to end up succeeding in the pass there in his 55 Lamborghini. So you can see very well job done there. Great job getting past there.
We've got a little bit further up the road. Ooh, what is happening here? This is Steven Martinez and Carl Fredrickson that is still continuing on. I told you this wasn't over yet, and it certainly isn't, because they're going to go side by side down into the Ascari chicane. We've got less than 5 minutes remaining before this race is up and done and dusted for round number 8 of the RATC. It's going to still be side by side. Steven Martinez manages to go on the outside. Good move indeed. And Steven Martinez making that position stick and taking the position back of Frederiksen. Doesn't mean it's not going to happen once again, because this is now coming into the final few laps of the race. This is where the leapfrog is going to happen quite a considerable amount more. You're probably going to see this again with any battles that happen a little bit closer, and any battles that are happening up and down the grid, is because simply, you're not working with each other now. You are simply fighting against one another. Still needs to be firm, still needs to be fair, and still needs to be clean, but ultimately you are now fighting for more positions. Are we going to see Kyle Frederiksen try and make a move? He pulls out of the slipstream, albeit briefly. Sort of sits there just in the eye line of the rearview mirror there for Steven Martinez, just to try and upset Steve a little bit, to make sure to see if he's going to make a mistake, but nothing currently being phased at the moment as it stands. Drew Neubauer has had a moment, so has Mark Scott. What has happened to Drew Neubauer? Is it a bit of a tap on the brakes, possibly? Maybe on the grass? Let's have a little quick look. Oh no, it's just, I think it was just a miss of braking point there.
Yeah, I don't think he got on his brakes nearly as much as he needed to there, so he kind of just realized it early and decided to kind of just take the service road there, serves his penalty, of course, and just keeps going. So no harm, no foul. Doesn't even need to go over the Sachets curbs there, and maybe even ruin the underbody of his car. But like you said, though, getting down to the end of the race, this is where the gloves come off. No one's working with each other anymore. This is just giving it all you have to the rest of the race.
Very much so. Well, I suppose it depends on the situation you're in. PJ Sturgis, there's no point in him pushing. There is absolutely no point in him pushing. Purely because, the gap is around 7 seconds. What's the point in risking trying to get another 2 or 3 tenths? When realistically that isn't going to... it's not going to make too much of a difference. So, PJ Sergio, Sean Campbell also to a certain degree, he's now got about 4.5 seconds on Justin Brunner, who's got about 4.5 seconds on Harry Wills. So, it's just a nice cruise to the end for the pro, for the top 4 in the pro field. And then a little bit further down, again, the battle still raging on, which we knew it would do. Just have to see how it sort of ends up between. So here we see that's a little bit of another just sort of like move out there from from Carl Frederiksen. He's not making any moves at this point, and what you'll probably find, he might try and dummy this on the last corner, perhaps, or maybe the last lap or something. He might do a bit of a dummy and then dart the other way very quickly, and aggressively. Again, there could be several things.
Yeah, one of many. He's certainly got a lot of options here, especially with how many long straightaways there are. He can always decide to kind of just use the slipstream and slingshot by him. As you can see, they're entering the second chicane here. This is mostly just one driver following another. I feel like, though, it's really hard to tell, too, which car is faster than the other, because you see them changing positions around so often. And, of course, both these guys have had their struggles today, going for spins, getting spun by other cars. You can see them both trying to make the best out of this night as they possibly can. Currently fighting for 6th in class, like you mentioned. Really getting down to the end of the race here. This is when you start to kind of get worried if you have enough fuel. Obviously, the iRacing Black Box is going to tell you just how much you have left. But you have to be careful. If you've been saving the whole race and all of a sudden you start to push, whatever fuel calculation it's giving you isn't going to be the same if you do start to push or if you do all of a sudden start to save. So it really just depends. Mostly just average of what you've been doing the entire race.
Yes, very, very, very true indeed. You've got to keep that consistency up, especially when we're coming now very much on to the last lap. Where is PJ Sturgis? There is PJ Sturgis. So this is indeed the last lap. We've got 25 seconds left. And then PJ Sturgis will be officially on the final lap. But we knew when we come across the line this was going to be it. Purely because there's only 13 seconds left of the timer. And PJ Sturgis is only going through a Scary chicane. So unless it's going to be a very, very fast few rest of the corners, this is going to be it. Again, over the curb, it's actually a bit difficult to try and drive conservatively. So you almost want to drive the same lines and everything, just maybe just that little bit further off, 5-10% off of your standard pace. But still, it doesn't matter because the gap has still been extending. The gap is 7.5 seconds to Sean Campbell, P2 in the pro category. One more corner to go, and then PJ Sergios will be taking the race victory here at round number 8 of the RATC Race Anywhere Transatlantic Championship. Here he comes across the line and taking a very well-deserved victory. Fantastic stuff indeed from PJ Sergios. And then a few seconds behind, and we're going to see Sean Campbell come across the line as we can see there.
Yeah, what a move on strategy on his part. Of course, Sean Campbell as well, putting in a fantastic race today. And Jay Steffi just behind him, just ended up taking the victory, I believe, as well in the AM category. You can see, though, right behind that battle, though, there is the current leader in the Pro-Am category, Wilson Brewer, just behind the battle there, as you can see, between... oh, sorry, that's going to be a different battle, but again, another battle nonetheless between Brent Bravata and John Cooper.
Yes, we've got Brent Bravata and John Cooper that's happening. Then we've also got Stephen Martinez and Carl Fredrickson.
Also got, yep. Martinez, Fredrickson really tries to stuff it in there in the Parabolica in the last corner, not going to be able to make it there. Of course, these guys are just ahead of Wilson Brewer there in the blue and orange Audi here as they head down the front.
Fredrickson run out of fuel. Fredrickson's run out of fuel.
Oh, yeah. Wow,
Oh.
wow, what an end of the race. All that battling, all for nothing at this point anymore. You can see just how he just coasts across the start-finish line. I'm sure you can attest to this. I have done it several times. That's one of the worst feelings in the world.
I've done it as well. It's not good. It is really, really not good at all. It's a big shame there. What it does mean, though, is obviously, we had Stephen Martinez then got promoted. Obviously, what would have been obviously may have had to work for a little bit more was a free position almost there, and at the very last corner. Ericsson managed to go up, and he was managed to P5 in the end. Considering what happened, I think he'll be happy with that performance there. Kalaga was in P2 for the AM field, and then Daniel Floria was in third position. We are going to bring you the full racing results in but a few moments' time, and then we will be seeing if there is anyone in for a conversation. I'm sure there will be in the waiting room a few people, but we will, like I said, we're going to bring you everyone results in but a few moments' time, and then we'll be able to move forward and then look ahead, going forward on to round number 9. Austin, from your side, strategy-wise, very good. Similar, to be fair, I think we predicted, didn't we, that strategy was going to be certainly something to keep an eye out for, and it certainly didn't disappoint.
No, not at all. I mean, strategy straight won this race for PJ Sturgios. Obviously, he might have had the fastest car out and out, of course, but, some of the strategy, again, underfueling the car in the second stint and then having to overfuel for the last stint, that put him out of harm's way in terms of the certain battles in the lower classes. That also put him off sequence and out of touch with the rest of the field, so he could kind of just run his own race, kind of manage the pace that he needed to at that point in time. So I feel like that won him the race completely. Just a great job by PJ to call that, and just kind of unfortunate for the rest of the field there. You could see, though, Errol Uriksoy kind of tried to undercut Stephen Martinez there a couple times. It worked, and then somehow I guess the draft must have worked against him there to just let Martinez back up to him. But yeah, what a fantastic race. The draft, another thing you brought up at the top of the show there, Daniel, draft played a huge part in this race as well. As we'll look here at the results in the AM category, Jay Steffi, of course, taking the win. Eric Kalaga in second. Daniel Flora rounds out your podium, followed by Jason Bridges and Errol Uriksoy. That'll complete the top 5.
Certainly so. And then we have going through Stephen Martinez in P6, Carl Fredrickson, unfortunately with that very bad luck at the end of running out of fuel in 7th. Jerry Furchold in 8th, with then Ken Soska in 9th. Andrew Hewitt rounds out your top 10 for Team HRL, and then Team Premat number 2, Drew Neubauer, John Casey P12, Michael Fowler in 13th, with Mark Scott P14. Matthew Alvis, number 87, rounding out your top 15, with Carl Herzlitsky in 16th. Matthew Plaisance in 17th, unfortunately actually finishing about 37 laps down. So unfortunately, certainly not the race that that Matthew Alvis, Carl Herzlitsky or Plaisance wanted. Going down into the Pro-Am category here, we have, as we can see, Wilson Brewer taking the race win for the Riddle Rocky Racing Gold, number 62. Daniel Tenorio takes P2, with John Cooper rounding out your top 3. Brent Bravata for Twisted Racing Blue is P4. Blake Scott is your fifth place finisher. Andrew Rasmussen is 6th. Frederick Lavoie in 7th. Joseph Smith takes P8. And we also then have Michael Kalaga in P9 for Vulture Motorsport Red. The teammate to Brent Bravata is Andrew Hewson for the other Twisted Racing Blue, number 40, rounding out the top 10. Tyler Campbell, P11, Taylor Lane, 12th, and then Casey Metzger in 13th. Again, finishing about 35 laps down, so certainly not ideal. And then just running out with your pro field here, we have PJ Sturgis, again, a dominant race with strategy. Fantastic stuff for InX Racing taking the race win. Sean Campbell in P2 with Texans 50 Motorsport in second place. Justin Brunner P3, Harry Wills in P4. And then we have Ryan Kaprowski finishing a couple of laps down. And then James Pearce, unfortunately, finishing 16 laps down. And that is your overall results for round number 8. I believe as well we have a few interviews as well, and I will leave that in the very, very capable hands of Austin.
Yeah, the first driver I want to talk to today, your winner in the pro category, PJ Sturgios. PJ, first off, talk us through your race there overall, and then we'll get into my questions because I got some good ones. I'm very curious of your strategy there.
Yeah, at the start there, I think Sean was getting through traffic a little and launching off the slow corners a little bit better than me, so I was just trying to stay behind him and Harry there and try to save a little bit of fuel, which worked out pretty well in our favor. So was able to get a quick pit stop there the second time and try to break the draft, and I think they just got held up just enough behind me that I still came out a few seconds ahead of Sean there at the end. So I think that was the difference at the end of this one. It's all pretty important to get the draft broken if we can.
Yeah, talk us just through the decision there to pit early. You know, when you did end up doing that, was that just what you had to do based on how much fuel you had spent in the run before, or was that just you trying to sort of offset yourself from them?
Yeah, I was more just trying to offset myself because I knew if you run the same pace as them, it's hard to pull away. If I could just get away, settle into my own groove, and hope for a little luck on my side, and I think it was today. So, yeah, like I said, these guys kind of get held up a little bit behind me, fighting each other, which, you can pull a couple seconds ahead here and break the draft at the end. That can make a huge difference at this place.
Yeah, for sure. Luck very much on your side there for them tonight. I think you were faster overall, but I can tell you for sure those guys were certainly fighting amongst each other, and then they came up to a little gaggle of cars at a slower class, so that very much helped you as well. Is there anyone you want to thank for putting your InX Racing BMW on the top step of the podium tonight?
Just all the guys at InX Racing for helping get this thing rolling like it was. Of course, SimuCube, Sam Maxwell Customs for the awesome steering setup that they have got for me, and yeah, just a good night overall. So thanks to all those guys.
Well, thank you very much for your time here tonight, PJ. Once again, congratulations on the win. Fantastic job tonight, buddy.
Thanks, guys.
Another driver I want to talk to is going to be Wilson Brewer, another winner here tonight, the winner in the Pro-Am category. Wilson, talk us a little bit about your race.
Well, I come into Monza, and it's always a draft battle. So the main goal for me is just being able to get out of the draft the guys behind. And luckily, I haven't been doing too well in the championship, so I had a pretty good starting position for this race, and I was able to get to the front pack quickly. And they had a few turns in a row of just kind of crazy contact, crazy late braking, and it was kind of chaotic. And I was able to find myself up front, and I got about a second gap after that, and they kept fighting, and I was able to just kind of pull away from there. I was fighting, I forget who was right behind me, who I think it was Taylor Lane. And he and I had a pretty good battle going, and then he ended up losing the rear in Parabolica, so that was really also a big factor for the win tonight. So yeah, it all kind of played in my direction tonight.
great job there with that. Certainly, just putting in your lap times. Another question I want to ask too. At the end of the race, we saw you kind of behind Martinez and Fredrickson there, and they're in their own battle. There's a third car with them as well. What are you doing at that point in the race? Are you just trying to manage the gap that you have and kind of follow them? You don't need to pass them, so you're just kind of biding your time to the race finishes.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if I had come upon them maybe with 5 laps to go, I would have probably tried to push through. But I had an 11-second gap to the guys behind, and so it wasn't too crazy. And they, I didn't want to ruin their battle because I knew it looked tight, and I didn't want to, lose the win for myself. So I just stayed behind them and managed the best I could.
Very much a mature racing driver move right there. Definitely a smart one for sure. Is there anyone you want to thank for putting your car on the top step of the podium today?
Just want to thank my teammate again, Ryan Kaprowski. We always practice, so I always put setups in together. So thank you to him, and big thank you to my coach Brian Lockwood as well. He's been helping me really pull out some pace in these past few weeks.
Well, great job on the win tonight. Thank you very much for your time as well. Congratulations, buddy.
Thank you so much.
One other driver here to talk to you tonight, been in the waiting room for quite a long time. Going to be Eric Kulaga coming home P2 in the AM category. First off, Eric, how about that, buddy?
That was a rough one today. That was it was fighting up through these guys one at a time, and I had a great battle the whole second stint with Dan Floria, man, and it's great racing him. And by the time I got through that, it was Jay was just gone. He was like 20 seconds up. He makes it boring for you guys. I'm sorry for that.
He does, but you know what? That's just part of it. I do appreciate you guys looking out for us. Maybe next season we can get him transitioned up into the Pro-Am category.
Yeah, we got to get him I think he's got nitrous, or maybe he's running DRS. I don't know. We're gonna have to get him in the inspection room and really tear that
I
car
think
apart.
maybe he's getting pushed through tech maybe too fast. I think I know what you're saying. Talk to us. How do you keep your mind in that battle for as long as you did? Because you guys, there wasn't a whole lot of mistakes in that battle.
No, nobody made mistakes. It was really clean up there. All the guys I came, that started in front of us, they were really racing hard and clean. So yeah, it was just, I thought I was going to do some undercut maybe, but it just kind of played out, and I got past Dan at the end of that stint and extended it after the pit stop. So yeah, from there on it was pretty smooth and just kind of cruising because there was nowhere to go forward. And but yeah, it was just good points day for us. We're just trying to sustain those points, man. Keep racking them up.
Certainly, very much indeed. Once again, congratulations on your run. Is there anyone you want to thank overall for your run tonight?
I don't really. The guy at the chicken joint by my house, he knows when I come through the drive up, he always is like, "Hey, dude, come on up. We know what you got," and he gets me set up right away. He doesn't have any questions. He's got it prepared for me, so I like that. I'm like Alex Below with my fried chicken after these things. Honestly,
the unsung heroes was a fantastic shout out to him. Thank you so much for your time.
I don't know his name, but he's great. I don't know.
Oh, for sure. Well, I mean, maybe next time you can ask him. He might be wearing a name tag.
Too personal.
I understand completely. Thank you so much for your time, buddy.
Thanks, guys. And thanks, Harry, again. Thanks to my teammates. Steve had a rough day. That kind of sucked. But yeah, it's just a lot of fun and love the series. Love what you guys do. It's really awesome. Thank you.
Well, thank you, buddy. Have a good evening, man.
You too.
One final driver. We actually kind of, shortchanged him a bit a couple weeks ago and robbed him of his interview. So very happy that he can have a good enough run tonight to get back up in the interview booth. It is Dan Tenorio. Dan, congratulations on your P2 run tonight in the Pro-Am category.
Thank you. Yeah, nice to actually talk to you guys. Yeah, no, that was a great race. I really wanted to just keep my nose clean for the remainder of the races and just bag as many points as I possibly can. And I think I did that this week.
Yeah, certainly fantastic job, just sort of taking what the car could give you, and no mistakes. Very much a quiet run. And everyone in your guys' class, really just a quiet one. All the battles were either way behind you or even further behind you. It was very, very spread out. So just certainly one of the races where you put your head down. How do you keep concentrated for that long when it's just you sort of having your own battle? Are you looking at the relative a lot, or are you kind of just eyes to the windshield, just focusing on apexes?
I think the first couple laps, obviously are a little strenuous, but after everybody kind of spreads out, I have my my teammates. It's 4 of us in our team channel, so we're all just kind of talking about strategy and how everybody else's races are going. So I kind of honestly just put in autopilot mode. I'm sure everybody can relate if they've done endurance racing, where the laps just fly by and you don't even realize you're driving anymore. Once you get into that point, and once you open up a pretty good gap, then the race kind of just drives itself, really.
Certainly. Is there anyone else you want to thank for your run tonight?
Just want to thank Twisted Racing Team. They kind of took me in about a year ago, and I've gotten a lot better after joining them, sharing setups and everything, and yeah.
Very good. Dan, we appreciate your time today. Once again, I apologize for kind of subbing you a couple weeks ago. Congratulations on your P2 run, and have a fantastic rest of your evening.
Yeah, you too. Thank you.
Once again, that was Dan Tenorio finishing P2 in the Pro-Am category. I believe, Daniel, you're ready to go ahead and wrap this thing up.
Indeed, we are. Thank you very much, Austin. Pleasure as always. Absolutely fantastic. Really, really good race from everyone. It was a pleasure to be commentating again and back in the commentary seat, which is the first time for about 3 or 4 weeks, which has been fantastic. Thank you everyone for watching. It's been fantastic. It's a big thank you to the sponsors, Race Anywhere, Sim3D, and Go For The Gap. Very good to have everyone on board for these sponsors. Again, fantastic stuff. Do make sure you go and check them out. Links to all of them in the description below. If you want to check out what they have available, I would strongly suggest you do so. But moving forward into the next round. So round 8, Monza, it was always going to provide us with some amazing racing. We knew that straight from the word go. But round 9 now comes through to Road Atlanta. Road Atlanta, similar sort of track in regards to it's a little bit more technical, especially in the first half of the lap, but it's got a humongously long straight. That is going to be something where fuel saving is once again going to be very, very key. So that is coming up in next week's round. And then we also have the Race Anywhere World Series. It was a break this week. We are back next week as well. So make sure you keep an eye out for that on the Absolute Sim Racing YouTube channel. You can catch all of the information and all of the broadcasts there on the channel, and you can see them all when they are coming up. But we do have to wrap up. It's a pleasure as always, everyone. We look forward to seeing you next week. Make sure that if you haven't already, please do consider subscribing to the Absolute Sim Racing YouTube channel. It helps us out massively. And if you could leave this stream a like as well, it would be greatly appreciated. But until next time, everyone, as always, make sure you take care and stay safe.